In early December, Kelowna native Rory MacDonald brought home the King of the Cage World Lightweight Championship after an impressive win over Clay French. It was the first time in his 20-fight career that French had been knocked out, and that included 3 previous title defenses. It was considered an upset win, but if you look at the history of MacDonald, you'd see it was no surprise at all. In 7 professional bouts, the 5'11" lightweight has yet to record a loss, with 4 submissions and 3 knockouts. His MMA career began at the ripe old age of 14 as he walked into Toshido Fighting Arts in Kelowna with no previous fight training but a willingness to learn.
You can try to beat your opponent at like the ultimate thing, like you're fighting, right? So that's just the biggest rush for me, and I love it. So I'm focused, and that's a big part of my success, I think.
You teach him one thing and it sticks, it's in his head, and he can do it right away against somebody who's fighting back. He's one of the most technical fighters I've ever seen, and I've had the luxury of training with a lot of world-class guys. He hits harder than any heavyweight I've ever been hit by, so there's some natural attributes there, but his technique is flawless as well.
The 19-year-old is a stand-up fighter who likes to strike, and with knockout power not normally seen from a lightweight, it's no surprise. To look at him outside of the cage, you wouldn't think he was a world championship MMA fighter, but it's what he looks like in the ring that matters.
Most people don't think I'm a fighter, especially when I'm actually at the events. They think I'm like just some random kid, standing around, but I'm usually fighting in the main event, and they don't expect me to be able to fight at all, but looks can be deceiving when you're a fighter. A big part of my game is boxing and the stand-up striking whole thing, and ground striking too. And I put a lot of time and focus into that.
Rory's time as a lightweight champion will be short, but it has nothing to do with a defeat in the cage. At only 19, he's continuing to grow, and that has pushed him up into the welterweight division at 170 pounds.
The cut was insane. It was the worst time of my life cutting for that, but I decided that it was a health thing at that point, and I knew I couldn't make that weight anymore, so I knew I had to jump up to 170, and that's what I'm doing right now. I'm up at the weight I want to be, but I still have to get stronger to compete with the guys that have been fighting there for their whole careers.
He was knocking guys out at 155. I expect that to continue into 170.
After only 3 years as a professional fighter, MacDonald has quickly worked his way up the MMA ladder, and he's already drawing attention from the UFC. Contract negotiations are already underway, and once he completes his current obligations with King of the Cage, he's expected to make the jump into the UFC Welterweight division.
I want to be fighting in the UFC, before next year, for sure. I want to be a world champion, but I don't know if that's going to be in the next 2 or 3 years. I might have to work longer than that, but whatever. I enjoy fighting, and if that's where it takes me in that amount of time, then that's where I'll be.
He'll be chewing his way up the ladder like a lot of young fighters, and there's no easy fights in the UFC, so it'll be an exciting ride, but it'll definitely be a tough one.
At this point, MacDonald is planning on staying with Toshido once he makes the jump to the UFC, and with the skills he's developed over his first 5 years with the club, it's no surprise. Keep an eye on UFC fight cards later in the year, because there's a good chance you'll see a local boy make the big time. Reporting for Shaw TV, I'm Brendan Osborne in Kelowna.